Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, I was planning to make another video today, but I figured it'd be appropriate for me to make a video about how my game session went last night because, as you may or may not know, I ran Ubiquity for the first time, and I ran a game of Desolation, which is post-apocalyptic fantasy role-playing. And Ubiquity powers a few other games like Hollow Earth Expedition and Leagues of Adventure, which I do have, and waiting for some other games to come in. But I got turned on to that a while ago by Runeslinger and kind of dug the system on paper. So I figured let me actually get some of these games and branch out, play something different, run something different, I should say, rather than just some OSR D&D clones, that sort of thing, and see how that goes. So I kind of want to go over like I guess I'd call this my second impression, not really second impression of the game, but how did it go? And if anything, the takeaways for me were, I kind of had some messages back and forth with Runeslinger this morning, my time, and it went over some things that I saw as like needs for improvement, not in the game, but like me, because we're talking a lot about, I think we're talking a lot about getting better, and so of course there's like, well, how do I do this better? How do I do this right in a particular game? So I'll set the stage a little bit. I haven't actually gotten a stable group that's my group yet. I have some people on deck that are waiting. We're waiting for a couple more people to find somebody. So I have a group of friends that have gamed forever, and they game every Monday night. And they were taking a break from their long-term Dungeons and Dragons game, and they were going to play some other stuff. And it turned out, like a few weeks ago, they were going to start playing Car Wars, I think. And the guy that runs the games had some life issues, so he just couldn't for a while. So it was up for grabs. So I went there a couple weeks ago and actually played this ridiculously fun and stupid card game called Epic Spell Wars of the Battle Wizards Duel at Mount Skullsfire. So if you ever want to play a ridiculously fun and stupid but fun card game, yeah, that's a good one. So I had a good time. But anyhow, they had nights open, and so they're like, well, I'd like to run a one shot, because I don't think I'd sell them on a campaign or anything. Of course, they've got somebody else already. So, like, okay, and that was cool. So I wasn't sure how many players to get. It turns out I had 7, which is not a great number for running a system that you just haven't ran yet. The other thing is these guys are, and I'm not knocking them. I don't know all of them. I know them better now. But some of them I've known for quite some time. This one guy, Brian Scavera, is a great DM. Is plays a lot of games, but just one of the better gamers I've ever played with. Is in the group, but a lot of them are, I get the impression a lot of them have played. They're a little bit of grognardy. They're like me, but they've played some old school D&D for a long time. They've played some Pathfinder. They've played games that they've liked, and I guess I'd call it like a beer and pretzels group, or a casual gamer group for the most part. At least that's the general feel of it. And I'll get back to that, maybe during the video, but I'm not knocking this. But that was just kind of it was a bit rowdy, and they're a lot of fun, but it was something else. So that made it a little more challenging as well. So what did I learn from all this? Well, first of all, it took a while to like really just explain them like how the system worked, and I didn't do a great job explaining everything because it's a lot to cover, to be quite honest with you. Fortunately, Ubiquity, is close to Dungeons and Dragons in terms of the name of the stats. And the secondary stats are derived from that, are pretty intuitive and use words that people are used to. And then the game has skills, and anybody that's played like D20, okay, you can figure out what skills are, that sort of thing. So as we're playing the game, I noticed some of the things that happened that I realized I could use improvement on. Is there's one stat called defense, and that's analogous to your armor class, and it is you can throw armor in there as well if you've got a benefit from armor. But it is your body plus your dexterity, if I'm correct. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, defense, body plus dexterity. Okay, just making sure. And it comes up with a number. Like if you're an average person, your defense is going to be a 4. And at times, and there's various monsters that have defenses listed in there. And any number in any stat represents how many dice you're going to add to a pool. So there's times when I'm having them roll against a defense, and I'm forgetting that's a dice pool and not a static number like an armor class. So I made the things twice as hard as they were, should have been to hit. So in preparation, again, for doing something like that, I would definitely have to, if I'm statting out like whoever the bad guys, although we'll get to who is the bad guys in this adventure, are, I definitely want to put down, make sure I have in parentheses like this is the average, because one of the other things I found myself doing too much, force of habit, was I found myself rolling dice, and The Ubiquity system definitely is about the dungeon master or game master. See, I got these old habits. The GM not rolling dice, because you could take the averages. Literally, what happens? And I was having once I got in the swing of things and went on autopilot, I was having their opponents in the few combats they actually managed to get into. I think it might have been like 2. I actually make attack rolls using their final attack value, when really all I should have been doing is using their attack average. So say their attack average might have been like 4 lethal. I should have had that be like a static number and have the players roll their defense dice, to see whether or not they beat that. Because much like I think Multiverso de Scapico, I made a video response to him about rolling for your fate. The idea that players, maybe a player wants to roll for their own defense when they're being attacked, and Ubiquity allows you to do that. That's kind of the default. The players roll their own defense. So this guy is attacking you. Beat this score because that's his average attack score. Or you want to attack this guy now. This is average defense score. Beat that. So I made that mistake, more than once, where I have a few other times when I rolled, my intuition was to roll dice. I gave the dice to them at the beginning of the session, but somehow they made their way back to me at one point or another, or within my reach, and that was a bad thing. So, that was another thing I found. It depending on the engagement of the player, and which varied, they picked up the system pretty fast. And actually, Brian, Brian's used to figuring out systems like that, So he was actually walking people through, how stuff works relatively easy, They figured out what the different color dice were, What else happened? Style points. That was interesting. People were a little bit befuddled by style points at first. And it depended on the player. Because style points are earned, by playing to your flaws and by playing to your motivations. And for the most part, the players, they played to their flaws. I mean, I gave them all pre-generated characters. Most of them were right out of the book. I did some, changed a couple things about them. But, and I changed some of the flaws. So they had a lot of fun, playing being impulsive or playing being mentally unstable. Or playing being obsessive. I think in one guy that was just plain old obsessive compulsive. I changed the sorcerer's obsession with stability to just plain old obsessive compulsive, which was neat because this person constantly wanted to bathe, which was interesting. So that worked, okay. I found that some of them were getting into the swing of things relatively well and getting style points. And Brian and a couple of guys figured out how to spend them, in clutch situations. I did find that, and I should have emphasized some more. I need to definitely emphasize more that when you're using style points, you want to narrate, well, how are you doing this? You're going because the idea, and I don't think I expressed this well enough either, that when you have a skill in Ubiquity, when you're faced with a challenge, your average rating, that represents you not breaking a sweat. And if you're using style points, that means you're going above and beyond. So you're putting in the extra effort. So that was something that I think they didn't get, or I didn't communicate well enough. So that's the whole style point mechanic. While it's very cool, it's another level of stuff that I have to remember and I have to convey to the players, and have that all happen. Let's see what else. Definitely big group, not a great idea for a new game. We did have some fun. They were a creative and rowdy bunch. They left the encampment. I'm not going to give the recap of the whole adventure, so don't worry. But they let the shtick was, you're in town A or settlement A. Things are bad there. People won't, there's rumors of a great, land of milk and honey to the north, so go find it, or go recon it. And so they went there. The first thing that happened was they came upon a peasant, or, a refugee, I guess it would be, and they killed him and ate him. Which, fits the Desolation motif, I did have them roll to see whether they got sick. And here's another thing I found myself doing is I just don't have a full grasp or like intuitive grasp of the system yet. So when I wasn't really sure for what the difficulty of a particular situation might be, I gave it a difficulty of 3. So about dead center, because 6 is near impossible. 1 is I'm not going to go through everything, but 5 is very difficult. So put it right around there. So I definitely one of those things where I need to get a bit more of a handle on it. One other thing that I found, players tripping up on a little bit, and I had to kind of remind myself that when you get a bonus for doing something, or a penalty, and say you get a penalty or a bonus of 2, that's 2 dice. That's not 2 successes. So if you get a bonus of 2, that means, okay, well, your average just went up by 1. simple things like that to remember. But I found myself with using the wrong defense rolls. That we were involved in combat, and not a heck of a lot was going on in terms of injury. I'm like, gee, that just doesn't sound right. Then I realized what was going on. Brian actually made a great use of style points and managed to call a shot up his talent with the style points of accuracy and shoot a giant carnivorous rabbit right in the eye, right out of Monty Python. I made that monster up, and it could knock you flat too with a gaze, because Desolation lets you make up your own stuff, or encourages you to, because everything, things are broken in this world. Let's see, what would be the last thing? And this video is already too long, but one of the takeaways I got, if you're still watching at this point, was playing with this group of players. I found that our game styles, while I can certainly play in that sort of game and have a lot of fun, I realized that our game styles are a little bit different. And I think what happened, and maybe I should make a separate video about this, but I'll say it now anyway, is there were people that I played with, and sessions that I played with, and groups that I played with, where it was very, very satisfying. And we were engaged. I talk about the Lamentations of the Flame Princess game I was in, being a great game. But there was at least one player I played with, another Joe, and he was just really good at getting involved and becoming a mover and shaker in the world, and thinking outside the box, and really getting into his character, and getting into like, what can we do here? And I thought I wasn't too shabby either at doing that, to be tooting my own horn. But that was very satisfying. I played with other people, had people play, when I game mastered, that did the same thing. The group that I ran for, Too Short, several years back, was like that. They were fantastic at getting on that, and those were much more enjoyable sessions. We weren't quite so much murder hobos and yucking it up and what have you. And at the time, I really lacked a language to put my finger on what was going on. Like, why did I like this better? Why did that feel more satisfying? And it felt less satisfying, playing where we're just kind of all yucking it up, and having a good time, so to speak. But it's different. And you might look at some of the words I've been using lately, or the videos I've been making, and decide that I become like a runeslinger, what's the word, disciple? That's kind of ridiculous. But what happened was, like, I got through the RPG Brigade, talking to a lot of other people, I experienced a language and some that expressed like how I felt and like what I was looking for. So I'm not saying that I don't enjoy the game I had last night, because it was a hoot. But there's a more satisfying level of play that I've experienced that I want to get back to again. And so, at that point, it's kind of like, get the right players. And this was not a group that, like, I would want to sit down. I'm not going to go to their house and sit down with them and say, well, here's my rules, and we're going to be immersive, and that's crazy. I was a guest, and I'd play with them again. Different game might be great with them, and we might do Desolation again. But I'm just saying, these are some of the takeaways I got, from this latest experience, and from the past year or so, where I really started to learn a bit more of a language for what I was thinking and feeling. So those are my big takeaways at the moment. The other thing, see, there's always one more thing. I did notice too, with such a big group, and this is a common phenomenon in role-playing games, or that the less vocal players can kind of get lost, in the mix. And when you're throwing in that style point mechanic as well, where now you're role-playing, to your flaw, role-playing to your motivation, the less vocal player can get even more lost, because they're just people that are more extroverted and just kind of natural. They fall into it, whatever it is. They figure out how to do this, how to act like that and role play a little bit. And even if they're just doing it in fun. And there's other people that just kind of get lost in the sauce. So I found that happening a little bit too. So my first session, not so bad. I found some things I definitely need to work on. I found just some confirmations of some play style things, and I realized there's a lot more I need to wrap my head around. Fortunately, I was able to print out some stuff from Hollow Earth. I think had some cheat sheets. I found some cheat sheets on the web as far as like combat cheat sheets and some skill cheat sheets. Have to make, or I think Hollow Earth actually has a relatively good game master screen, but I may have to make myself a little screen or cheat sheets of like the mechanics that I'm bound to use and forget. So that's it. Long video, but that was my my game experience and some of the takeaways from that. So thanks for watching, and talk to you later.